Hi, friends. Welcome to tonight's live chat. It's good to see you. Hope you're doing okay. I was reading some of the things in the comments section. My friend Shamita, Give It a Thing, GB Joe, Bossy Truthy 15, and Brianne Tibbet. Oh, that's cute. I like that. It's good to see all of you. And Adams just signed on as well. Hello and welcome to the channel because I don't remember seeing you. So welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. Today was a very busy day for me. I thought I was gonna let me hook up Instagram and then I'll share what was going on before I came on tonight. I was finishing up some gardening because there's a lot of garden in the backyard or in the patio section, but then there's a lot of garden on the sides and the fronts of my home. And so I was really feeling overwhelmed and I was sweating bullets. I was so hot and tired. And I came in and literally crashed and looked at the clock. And I said, I'm only going to take a 5-minute snooze. Okay. That 5-minute snooze turned into a 40-minute snooze. So now here I am. And I'm a little tired. So bear with me, okay, guys, as we go along in tonight's live chat. I think it was Juby Joe. I still have to respond to you, by the way. She had shared with me yesterday that she was also doing some gardening and took a nap. I don't know what it is, but it tires you out. It does. Okay, here we go. As I get Instagram kind of connected to us here, let me say that this particular topic is a challenging one. It's a good topic. It's one of those topics that kind of, it stirs emotion, you know, it stirs sometimes anger, it can stir resentment, it can stir negative feelings and thoughts because boundaries are essential, right, guys? I ended up changing, there we go. I think Instagram is okay. I think we're doing okay. I ended up changing the title just a little bit. The title was The Psychology of Setting Boundaries with Rejecting Family, but I decided to go ahead and change that to The Psychology of Setting Boundaries and the Family Predator, something of the kind. I don't remember what my thumbnail said. But I figured I would change the title just a little bit because when we talk about predators, you're going to see exactly why I'm calling these particular individuals predators. When we think about predators, we probably think of two things. I know I do. I think of a predator like a lion, my favorite animal. You know, they're so cool, right, guys? For those of you who like them like me, if you studied the lion, it would floor you because of all the sophisticated thinking processes and survival mechanisms and behavioral responses and all of that they engage in before they jump on their prey to take them down, to ingest them for food. It's very interesting how they navigate, how they process things, how they premeditate, how they organize their attack, how they get a tribe of other lions to also become a part of the takedown process, if you will. It's very interesting how sophisticated lions are. Most animals, I think, are way smarter than we think, but lions are just superb. It's interesting how they think. So when I hear a predator or I hear the word predator, I think of that. But I also think of sexual predator. But in tonight's live chat, we're talking about the predator who preys upon you. And it may be a family member. It could be somebody you're in a relationship with, could be a neighbor, could be somebody that you've been married to for a long time. Predators come in all shapes and forms. And it's kind of scary when you recognize that right in the midst of a dynamic that's supposed to be safe, protective, loving, transparent, which is the family dynamic, when you realize that there's a predator or predators in your midst, it can be really destabilizing, right? Because now you have to think in a totally different way. You have to try to process their behavioral patterns towards and around you. And now it's kind of, in a sense, you're going to learn some new terms by the way tonight. But you may find that in many ways, the family member is behaving in ways that you were never prepared for. And so, yes, we are talking about boundaries tonight because that's important to the dynamic, but we're also talking about the predator-like mindset that family members or anybody that you're in a relationship with can have, that makes it hard to set those boundaries, and makes it hard for you to set the boundary, maintain the boundary, and walk away. I know you have people like that in your space. They don't seem to learn. They don't seem to learn from the damage that they have caused you and themselves, or other people and themselves. They don't learn from the damage that they have caused. Damage that they could cause could be something like constantly running over your boundaries, not calling you before showing up to your home, putting something on social media without asking you for permission, coming to your house late at night or early in the morning unannounced, right? Spreading rumors, engaging in what we call relational aggression, which is name calling behind your back, pitting people against each other behind your back. Sometimes relational aggression can be found in the relationship of siblings, and mom or dad could play the role of aggressors because they're taking something you have said and taking something your sibling has said and has shared it with the both of you. And so now you're wondering what your sister meant, and now your sister's wondering what you meant. And so now there's this relational confusion and possible frustration and anger because things have gotten mixed up as a result of your parents' relational aggression. So relational aggression can be in there. They can also cause damage by refusing to abide by what you say that you need and you don't need, right? Sometimes we don't need what other people are telling us or saying to us. Sometimes we don't need your advice. Sometimes we don't need you to have high expectations. We just need you to kind of exist. But people who are not willing to set a boundary, what happens? Well, people who are not willing to respect a boundary also, what happens? They get ran over, or they run over you, unfortunately. So somebody who doesn't regard your boundaries in a way that is respectful to you, can we call them a predator? Most likely. Because human predators, not lions, not animals, but human predators, they premeditate, they think, they process, they typically are smart. They may also have some glib and charm. So you may never believe that they are calculating something against you because they're charming. They kind of pull you in. They have a pattern of behavior that could be admirable, right? Or deceptive. So it could be hard to figure out who is this person before me. But once they start, moving the chess pieces, so you will, or what's the word that I could use for this? I can't really think at the moment of what a more specific term would be. So I'm going to say, once they start kind of playing the game with you, I'll put it that way for lack of a clinical term. When they start playing the game with you, it could feel really, what's the word? I'm having a hard time, guys, with words tonight. It can feel really bewildering. I'll put it that way, because you're never on guard for somebody close to you to be a predator. So there's no need for you to be on guard because you're not thinking that, right? But the predator is a predator because they're in your space, they're manipulating things, they're harmful to you, they are premeditating things. They absolutely have no guilt or shame, right? They tend to be very pushy, dominating, rejecting, and sometimes intimidating. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Feeling guilt for a predator within the family dynamic, or some individual within the family or relationship dynamic that constantly has negative thoughts about you, right? Or they're constantly in the mindset of doing things all around you without respecting who you are, without respecting what your needs are. These individuals never feel guilty. Why? Because guilt means responsibility, and guilt means empathy. And those are two things that family members who bypass your boundaries, bypass your need for respect and honor, right? And they prey upon you through manipulation, triangulation, negative rumors and comments being made all around you. They don't have empathy and they really don't have responsibility. So guilt with these kind of individuals doesn't exist, right? I told one of my clients a couple of weeks ago, I says, listen, it sounds like you have somebody in your world that you need to slowly back away from a little bit over time. You can set your boundary, right? Hope that they respect it, but don't look for anything, because for the most part, they're not going to respect you. They're not going to feel guilty. You're not going to make them feel ashamed of their behavior. And they're most certainly not going to say, I'm sorry. They're not going to apologize. They are not going to say, would you please forgive me? Right? That's not in them. So slowly back out of the relationship, slowly back away, set your boundary and stick to that boundary. Because once you shift the boundary, then the individual now assumes that they can deceive you and manipulate you so that you will continue to move the boundary. And so in a sense, you lose all respect. So oftentimes, and this is what my client and I were talking about, oftentimes you have to set the boundary, back away, close the door, and don't look back, or set the boundary and stay very firm on the boundary. Because family members, whoever you're in a relationship with, if they are manipulative and controlling and dominating and aggressive, right, then you've got a really bad group of characteristics there, and they're going to come against you at some point. They're going to say something about you. They're going to disregard your boundaries. They're not going to respect you, and they're most certainly are not going to take any responsibility for the consequences of their behavior towards you. So it's often best to set the boundary and back away. Now, research in psychology, and I've seen this as well in practice, suggests that there's a variety of aggressive behaviors that these individuals tend to have. And aggression, of course, is any kind of behavior or action that it intimidates and harms others, right? It intimidates you. You don't know what's coming next. There are different kinds of aggression that these individuals, these predators, people who are family members who prey upon you when you are weak, when you are asking for support, when you are in a bad place in your life, when you have poor emotional mental health. It's a vulnerable place that you're in. And predators tend to, in an interesting way, almost sense that there's a vulnerability and they come after you, right? And so these kind of family members, they may engage in a variety of aggressive behaviors. There's, of course, we said earlier, relational aggression, where there's a lot of rumors and name calling and pathological lies, all of those things floating all around you. And somebody may have, or the individual who is coming against you, the family member, they can start talking about your business all throughout the family, making or drawing conclusions and really gossiping and getting the ball rolling over something that they really don't understand. And that is painful, because you may hear through the grapevine that somebody thinks this way of you, somebody doesn't like you for this, somebody doesn't accept you for that. And it's all a waste of energy, but it's floating around in the family. So there's relational aggression. That's really at the core of this. It's a process of ostracism. It's a process of ostracism, meaning we over here are the family members who disregard your boundaries. We talk against you. We spread rumors. We manipulate things. We triangulate. We pick up the phone or we text each other to keep us in constant communication about what's happening with you, but we'll never call you. We'll never invite you anywhere. We'll never respect you. And we will most likely not feel responsible for any emotion that comes up from you, because we are all talking about you over here. I know you guys know what I mean. You probably have seen or experienced that dynamic for sure. And it's an ugly dynamic. It's ostracism. We're over here and you're over there by yourself alone. And by the way, we're all talking about you and gossiping about you, and the list goes on, you know, and it's a very painful place to be in. Aside from relational aggression is reactive and hostile aggression. And that can happen when a family member really doesn't respect your boundaries. So, you know, you may have words with, or you may have clashed with a family member, a sibling, a parent, a father, a mother or father. And instead of them just maintaining their respect of your relationship with them, and instead of them working it out with you, what do? They pick up their phone, they dial Aunt Nunu, okay? Or they text Uncle BB, okay? And they start talking about you to your other family members. And so that kind of not only triggers a feeling of betrayal, but it also triggers a feeling of what's the word I'm looking for here? Kind of like a groupie. I'll put it this way: a groupie type of mentality. You know, it's like we're over here all against you. That's the word I was looking for. An alliance or a coalition. That's what I was trying to remember earlier. It's kind of like these family members are building an alliance or a coalition over here, right? And you're over there. Why? Because there's reactive hostile aggression. You know, you and that family member are not getting along. So what does dad do? Let's say you're not getting along with your dad. Instead of dad hanging up the phone, right? Or closing his computer and not responding to your email, instead of him just kind of taking a break and refusing to go back and forth with you in an argument, he picks up the phone and calls another family member, bypass the boundaries of your relationship with him, and starts talking about you, which in turn could cause that other family member to turn against you as well. It's a very ugly and manipulative dynamic, right, guys? It's not okay. There's also what we call instrumental aggression. And what happens here is there's a kind of coldness and callousness to instrumental aggression. There's this premeditated kind of dynamic when it comes to instrumental aggression, because what happens is the person kind of premeditates in a callous and cold way what they will or will not do to achieve a set goal or a desired outcome. So an example of this could be your mother, who is a narcissist. She's often quite callous. She doesn't know how to show love and affection or empathy. She just doesn't have the ability to do that. She likes perfection, she likes structure, and she likes balance. But she is not going to hug you, wipe your tears when you cry. She's not going to tell you it's going to be okay. She's not that kind of a mother, okay? Let's say, for example, your mom engages in instrumental aggression. She premeditates talking to your brother about you, telling him all the things that you did wrong, asking him if he would ever go down the same road in life that you went down. And also in the midst of that conversation is mom kind of building a tight relationship with her son, and in essence, kind of talking about and going against you, right? What's mom's desired outcome? To pit you two against each other so that she can somehow gain an edge in the family, so she can gain a position of authority in the family. Instrumental aggression. I am going to premeditate callously what I'm going to do, what I'm going to say, and I'm going to figure out why I need to do this so that I can be on top and you're going to be beneath, because I pit you guys against each other. It's a scary dynamic, right, guys? Instrumental aggression. Now, let me also say, before I go to the chat box, because you guys are chatting up, I want to see what you guys are talking about and welcome you. But let me also mention here two other concepts when it comes to boundaries, when it comes to relationship predators, which are people or family members who prey upon your vulnerability. They prey upon your trust of them. They prey upon your need for boundaries, healthy boundaries. They don't care, right? Remember I said earlier, they don't learn from the damage that they have caused to you and themselves, and they are never going to feel guilt. Why? Because that means they have to take responsibility, and that also means that there's empathy. And when they are unable to feel any kind of guilt, run, because you're not going to get a person who's going to admit or be accountable, right? And you're obviously not going to get a person who cares and is empathetic. So you probably should get out of that family dynamic or get out of that relationship, you know? But another way that we can kind of look at these individuals would be something known as inhibitory control. Most manipulators, most controllers and dominating individuals who prey upon others, or they bypass boundaries and disregard you, they really do lack inhibitory control. Inhibitory control is, I now have the ability to override or to suppress my impulses, my behavioral responses in order to achieve goals that I have set, right? Or to obtain something. And they don't have this. Predators, disregarding family members, people who walk all over you, bypass your boundaries, they don't have inhibitory control. It's not there. They don't have the ability to override or suppress impulses and behaviors that are inappropriate so that they can get what they need or somehow achieve some outcome or goal, you know? I once had a client that had a hard time with this. I think it was back in 2021, somewhere around COVID time. And they didn't have inhibitory control. They didn't have the ability to, like I always tell my clients, pump the brakes. They didn't have that. They didn't have the ability to pause and think. Now, why am I going to spread this rumor about my sister Candy? And why am I going to mom and dad about something that isn't true? Because all that's going to do is cause chaos in our family. So I'm not going to go that route because I'm angry. That is pumping the brakes. That's inhibitory control. Reasoning and processing the whys, the consequences, right? And why the behavior is not appropriate. But individuals who lack inhibitory control, they just go full force, right? And they manipulate, they dominate, they hurt other people, they bypass your boundaries, they could care nothing about your feelings, right? And they don't feel they are responsible for the damage that they have caused you. So they lack inhibitory control. Family boundaries is another concept. Family boundaries can really be tough because you've got relational boundaries, emotional boundaries, you know, if you're trying to set emotional boundaries with family members who don't respect you, this is going to be really hard, right? Because emotional boundary says this, I have to put what I'm feeling and thinking first over you, right? So an example of that could be you telling your brother, I cannot allow you to live with me because you have ADHD that is uncontrolled. You don't have a steady job. You're dating a woman who lives in the basement of her mother. You know, you're not really responsible. You just got fired. You cannot live with me until you get yourself together. And I also have to care for me, because if I let you move in, this is an example of emotional boundaries. If I let you move in, then it's going to hurt my mental health. I'm going to be very depressed and sad and overwhelmed by the way your life is going. So no, that is a boundary. That's what we would consider a family boundary. You're saying no, you're giving the reasons why, and you are clearly outlining what the consequences would be. Emotional boundaries. It's going to take a toll on me, and I'm not going to do A, B, and C. End of story. But it's very hard to have family boundaries, especially if you have grown up in a toxic family dynamic or a dysfunctional system where there were no such things as boundaries. You know, everybody just kind of ran over everybody in the family. And that is a really difficult thing to do. In tonight's live chat, guys, I'm going to try to wrap up here by 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. We'll see how that goes. But I'm going to give you a set of common behaviors that research in psychology has highlighted to us as being common behaviors of family predators, of relationship predators, or individuals who just do not respect who you are, what you need, right? And the behaviors and attitudes they should have towards you. So I'm going to give you those common behaviors that could help you identify what's wrong with these kind of people. I also want to highlight some things on family rejection, and then I'm going to give you some insights on what I have seen and what psychology also highlights as being a negative impact on you. So we're going to get into that, okay, guys? Let me go back to the beginning and say, Steph's Spring Nursery, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. My friend Shamita, Lore Fit, Nancy R, Brian Tibbet. I hope I said that correctly. I already said hello to give it a think, but I'm going to add you to that. And Bossy Truthy 15, I also welcomed you earlier, but I'm going to add you to that. Welcome to all of you. So glad to see you back tonight. My friend Shamita says, this is yet another great topic. I'm so glad to catch a live with all of you. Oh, that's so awesome. I'm glad you could catch a live with us too. I was torn between two live chats tonight, to be very honest. And then I thought, you know what, we're going to tweak tonight's live chat. I'm going to add some good stuff in here because we need to talk about these things. Keith B. Thank you so much. Juby Joe says something about Tamara's live is so special. That's wonderful. I am so humbled by that because, you know, you could come to a live chat and it's just totally awful. You know, the people are mean, there's arrogance, there's self-centeredness, and the teacher and the leader is arrogant and full of themselves. So I think it's wonderful when everybody can connect and humbly and modestly have a wonderful experience and then say goodnight. Isn't that wonderful? So it's truly a blessing. Thank you for pointing that out, GB Joe. Keith B, Helene Webster, and Kev Dower. Hello and welcome to you guys. So glad to see you tonight. Adam says, are you going to talk about sociopaths today? I mean, we can throw them in there. I mean, you know, if you think about a psychopath, right, or a sociopath, we're technically talking about a predator, right? Because they have the ability to do things all around us that most of us don't expect. You know, think about this with me. Walk with me on this for a second. Think about how it is when you get up in the morning. You get up in the morning, right? You may do like me. You open your eyes, you say, oh my God, I'm late, and you're really early, right? So you may wake up in a panic or have tons of anxiety, or you may wake up, sit there for a while, maybe do some mindfulness meditation, however you wake up, okay? So you wake up, you do all the needed things that you need to do. You look at your watch, you look at your phone and say, okay, I need to be A, B, and C in an hour. You're not thinking of somebody possibly causing an accident on the road. You're not thinking about somebody disregarding and disrespecting you when you get to your workplace, right? You're not thinking about the evils of the world. You're not having trouble in your life, right? So you're not depressed, you're not overwhelmed. Life is operable for you, right? And you don't necessarily, and this is most humans, you don't necessarily wake up in the mindset that you are going to walk into the space or the realm of a psychopath while we're trying to figure out the next meeting we need to get to. And while we're trying to figure out what dinner is going to be tonight for the family, what is the psychopath doing? Well, he's watching human behavior. He or she is watching human behavior, studying vulnerabilities, thinking about the next person they can manipulate and harm, right? Isn't this scary, guys? We're all thinking about normal things in life, our families, our clients, our patients, you know, what's going to happen next week at so-and-so's funeral. There's a birthday coming up, right? We're worrying about all of that, not a psychopath. A psychopath is processing and trying to figure out their next victim. Can I romance that one over there and get them to think that I am so wonderful that they should marry me? Can I manipulate that child to get in my car so I can kidnap them? You know, can I sit at a playground and watch children because I have a sexually primitive mindset when it comes to youth? So I'm going to go to the playground and just sit and watch. You know, we're not thinking on that level. So atom, ooh, that's hard. Atoms. You bring up a good point there that maybe I should be talking about psychopaths tonight. I think we should throw them into the mix because, again, while we're all over here running in daily life and trying to be healthy and engage and be social and worry about our jobs, the psychopath is over here calculating how many attempts they have to manipulate you and to blind your eyes and to do what they want, to get you to do what it is that they want, right? Figuring out how to manipulate you, how to take your money. That's really all a psychopath does. So in a sense, when I say predator, family predators are individuals who prey upon your weaknesses or your boundaries or your needs, we can say it's a psychopath. We might as well just throw that in there, right? Psychopaths are scary. They're scary. When I used to work in a juvenile, I was in like a juvenile counseling program. And there were two pieces to it. There was outpatient therapy, meaning that, these kids would come from their detention centers or come from their jail cells and would come and see me for therapy in the office. But then I was also in a setting where I would see these young juvenile boys. I worked with all boys at one time. I would see them in a school environment, and then I would later see them in a residential treatment facility, kind of like a campus where kids who need help stay. And in those settings, it was very interesting to see how their mind operated. It's almost like their mind, the developing psychopath or the full-blown psychopath, the mind is constantly on what they can do to outsmart humanity, manipulate a relationship, make you their victim, their next victim, because there's often more than one victim, right? And sometimes they play games. They feel like this is exciting to deceive you. It's exciting to see how vulnerable you are. It's exciting to see how much fear I can put in you, right? So yeah, we might as well throw the psychopath and the sociopath in here. Yeah. Jessica J, hello and welcome. Glad that you are glad to be here with us. Always glad to see you as well. Actually, Jovial, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. Jermaine, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. T Bunny Shy, Adilla. Hold on, guys. Bear with me. I'm hitting all the wrong buttons. Kyra Knows 14, 4K. Hello. Good to see you guys back tonight. Actually, Jovial says, prowling like a lion, seeking whom they may devour. That is so, so true. Thank you for that. I love that scripture because it really does explain human behavior when the behavior of the human is dark and evil. I won't go into it. But I love that. Thank you so much for bringing that up. AMB, good to see you and welcome back tonight. AMB says, I'm looking forward to this because I call people predators all the time. People do behave like this towards others. They do. And imagine a psychopath being the person that sits right next to you on the bus, the person who is standing in line at Dunkin' Donuts, right? The person who tells you what you're going to do and writes down your name on a paycheck so you can get paid from work, right? So once you start looking at the fact that psychopaths are not as, or predators, they're not always as hidden as we think. Sometimes they're in everyday life and they are in positions of power. They are in positions of healthcare. They are in positions of policing and being an attorney, right? And even a chef, a school crossing guard, people who prey upon you, psychopaths, family psychopaths, they exist. And I think they're more common than we think. So I'm with you. AMB. I'm not sure I understand that comment. I will come back to you though. Maybe you can clarify that one. I don't know what to think of that comment. I really don't. MS, hello and welcome. Good to see you back tonight. MS says, this topic means so much to me. Thank you. So glad you got a snooze. Glad to know you're gardening and you have a life outside of helping. Oh, that's so sweet of you. You're the best. Saying no is the greatest boundary I've learned. Oh, man, that was a wise comment. Thank you so much. I'm going to star that. I am going to literally write down your comment and just stick it on just so that I can be reminded that boundaries are healthy, even in the helping profession, right? And sometimes I do have to say no. I do. I'm sorry I can't see you Monday because I don't feel well. I'm sorry I have to reschedule you because I don't feel well. And sometimes I have to, and I ask for forgiveness, and I go from there. So thank you for that. I really appreciate you. And yes, I do have a life outside of being here on YouTube. You guys are a wonderful part of my life, though. Coral Sky, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Sigma, Praxis, Synergy, hello and welcome. Good to see you. Jermaine says, wolves in sheep's clothing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Helene Webster says, lions are called king of the jungle for that reason. They are. That's so true. Kyra knows 14-4K says, absolutely diabolical and disturbing. Yeah. Buga, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Hello and welcome. I don't know if I said it earlier. I meant to. I apologize for that. Good to see you tonight and welcome to the channel. He says, it sounds like my whole family. That is rough. Yeah. Oh, you're so sweet. Brian Tibbet, I really appreciate you for that. That's so kind. And thank you so much for being a member for 6 long months. That is amazing. And I'm so glad that the channel has contributed to your life in a positive way. That's so awesome. So awesome. And thank you for spreading the positivity and gifting people with memberships. It's so selfless. And I really appreciate that. Okay. Force of Living. Hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. I got confused here in the chat box. Always good to see you. Helene Webster says, does passive aggression fall in hidden control dynamics? Yes, it does. Passive aggressive behavior is the huffing and puffing all around somebody and then saying you're not mad or you're not angry or you're not sad or upset, right? Slamming doors and hope that it disrupts somebody in the family. Looking at you but not smiling or saying hello to you. Standing right next to you or standing in front of you and not giving you any kind of indication that they are acknowledging your presence in front of them, right? These are all control tactics and unhealthy dynamics, and passive aggressive behavior can definitely be thrown into aggression or passive aggression. We can say that as well. Yes. Anaphylaxis. Hello, my friend. Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. Okay. Bear with me. Juby Joe says, you're being challenged by the predator and they are targeting you with no regards to your safety. Absolutely. Because again, there's no guilt. There's no guilt in them. Why would they have guilt? Guilt says, I have empathy. Guilt says, I have cognitive empathy. Guilt says, I'm responsible. So what happens? They deny everything. They lie, they twist things, they skew things, they cover things and submerge things because they don't want to be responsible. They don't want to experience guilt. And a lot of times they can't experience guilt. Guilt is the process of a neurological system. And there's something wrong in the brains of predators. And we do have some research now that's starting to identify the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, or the prefrontal lobes as being highly influential in the behavior, over the behavior, I should say, of a person who is a psychopath. So we may get into that at some point as well. Yeah. Laura Fitz says, predators observe and study you. While you have good intentions, they are planning to control, manipulate, and hurt you. They also expect you to trust them after the pain they cause. Yeah, that's so very true. That's well said. I am going to star your comment, Laura Fitz, in the chat box. Because I think that comment needs to be kind of highlighted, well said, and I very much agree. Tooth Sloth Jules, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. Donna Lee, good to see you as well. Donna Lee says, the predator in my life I've never had a relationship with. Wow. That's an interesting comment. expound upon that if you so choose. But that's a very interesting comment. Give it a thing says, or yeah, give it a thing says, I was surrounded by these people growing up. They do not stop and cannot be resonated with. No, 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 they can't. No. When a person doesn't have guilt, that means a person also doesn't have the ability to self-reflect. So without the ability to self-reflect, right, they're not going to stop. They're not going to allow you to communicate with them. You're never going to come to an agreement with them. You're never going to be respected for your own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, right? And so that's a really scary reality. Have you guys ever seen those YouTube clips where police often have body cameras? I think that's the greatest thing they could have ever come up with, because we do have some really wonderful people who work in the police force. You know, you have bad eggs there, just like you have bad eggs in my own field. But the really great ones who really try, if you watch those body cam videos, it's scary to see that sometimes the person who has been pulled over, you know, they start arguing, they start reasoning, and trying to reason with the officer, or, you know, they're trying to be intimidating, they're screaming, I know my rights, you know, they're being very disregarding of the officer's safety and of their own safety. The scary part is sometimes you will observe in that exchange that an officer may try to reason with the person. They may try to explain things and over explain things, and they're not getting anywhere. Why? Because in the twisted and skewed mind of the other person, they are not able to be reasoned with. They're also not able to assume responsibility. So there's no accountability, there's no boundaries, there's no self-respect, which means there's no respect for the officer either. So, you know, it's interesting. I feel like the police force needs a lot of knowledge of what a psychopath is, and just how to deal with predators and people who are disregarding of you, right? Because the psychology, as you say, give it a think, is they do not stop, and you can't, nothing's going to resonate with them, and nothing is ever going to come to a place of agreement with them. They are devoid of the capacity to do those things. Yeah. Glad you brought that up. Give it a think. I very much agree with that. And I learned that in my profession, just starting out. It was the saddest and the scariest thing I had to learn along the way. Jessica J says, they appear at your doorstep when you are your most vulnerable. When you are your most vulnerable. Very much agree. How do they know that? Because as we as human beings, honestly and genuinely try to pursue positive things, loving relationships. We like to pursue our goals in life. We like to put our energy into the relationships that we highly value, right? You guys are also doing something on this channel every single Friday, Saturday, which is learning and growing, right? So you're amongst equal minds or similar minds. You're bettering yourself. Just as we put our energy into that, the predator and the psychopath, or the unstable family member who violates all boundaries that are healthy, they put all of their energy into that. So in a sense, over time, they almost develop this quote unquote sensitivity to people they can victimize, because that is how they behave. You know, just being a therapist to young men and young males, adolescent to early adulthood, who were all in jail or prison for some kind of terrible, terrible act on their behalf, burglary, rape, attempted murder, the list goes on. I used to sit amongst them and try to help the teacher navigate the classroom environment. And it was interesting to hear how they thought. Instead of putting their mind towards the chalkboard and towards what their teacher was telling them to do and trying to teach them, they wanted to manipulate. They thought everything was funny. They wanted to pit one person against the teacher, right? They wanted to cause chaos in the room. Their heart was bent towards evil, darkness, and harm of other people. And so in a sense, you develop a sensitivity. And I really do think people who pray and are psychopaths, they develop an inner sensitivity to people that they can victimize. It's a sad reality. And I didn't mean to take your comment down. Jessica J, I'm just going to put it up here. I'm going to star your comment because I think it's something that needs to be highlighted. That was a very, very good question. I think a lot of people struggle with that though, you know. But yeah, it's the way that it typically is for these kind of individuals. They really do develop a sensitivity towards people that they can manipulate, and it's like they can see you coming a mile away, you know. Okay, all right, guys, give me 1 second here. There was somebody else I saw and I wanted to comment on it. I don't think I'm going to find it. Leslie A. I'm going to go back into the content just a second, guys. Leslie A. Good to see you and welcome back tonight. She says, yes, I have several family members who do this. Yep. Yep. I'm sure you guys are probably, I'm sure you guys are probably resonating with this for sure. The iconic intuitive, hello and welcome. Good to see you back. She goes on to say, it's not enough to be ostracized. People are needing it without my career, my home, my health regimen, my reputation, my son, my pets, etc. Gotcha. It's not enough to be ostracized. Yeah. I think I understand what you're saying, that it ends up being a lot more than that. Is that what you're saying? That's the way I'm taking it. Bossy Truth 15 says it's family. Axe to Edge, hello and welcome tonight. I don't remember if I said welcome to you, but Axe to Edge says, so I never feel left out. I am my own company. Totally get that. That is wise. Ellie Wynn, good to see you and welcome back tonight. One more comment, guys, and I'm going to go to the content again. The Good Glow, good to see you and welcome back tonight. The Good Glow says, hi, Tamara. Hi, Tam fam. Late, but here. I was cooking and time got away. My 4th is today. So I'm having crab cakes, grilled chicken, ribs, seafood salad, potato salad. Come on. Why are you doing this to us? The Good Glow, mac and cheese and corn on the cob. Done. Look at you. Where do you live? I want to come. No, my mom and my siblings, okay, make me cook. Can you believe that? It's like they trick me somehow, you know? It's like, yeah, dinner would be great. And I'm like, okay, so who's going to do dinner? And they're all looking at me. And my mom, she cutely threw in there today, you know what? Shrimp sounds good for dinner tonight. And I'm like, okay, Mom, it's on the Target order. I'll go get a drive-through or a curbside pickup. I mean, let that bless you. Right? The Good Glow is wonderful when you can say, I have these yummy foods to be grateful for. So let that bless you. Okay. One more comment, guys. I lied. Actually, Jovial says, oh, that's so sweet. I'm going to read this. I thought this was about the actual content, but I'm going to read this because it's really sweet. Actually, Jovial says, there's so much I want to say. I can't even type it. This is why I come here. Tamara, you are the support system a lot of us need. That is wonderful. And thank you so much for saying that. I'm so glad that you see it that way and that you're getting that support. You know, this is a platform where you can literally let your thoughts and your heart be known without the threat of, can I afford therapy? Can I open up to a therapist? How can I get there every week? You know, do I need to pay this big membership to learn this information? So that's really wonderful. I'm really glad. All right, let's go back to the content, guys, because I can keep reading your comments all night. Let's talk about the common behaviors. The thing that psychology highlights that is often at the core of a predator or a family member who doesn't seem to understand the boundary, or maybe anybody that you're in a relationship with, not just a family member. But for the purposes of tonight's conversation, we're really and honestly talking about family members. The first thing that research has suggested is there's often a pattern and a high rate of what we call recidivism. And that is really what we call a repeat offender. It's a person who does something, they get in trouble, right? And then they get out of trouble. And they slide back into making the same dumb mistake that they did the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time. And you can consider this a person that you are in relation to, or you can consider this a behavior that happens when let's say, for example, I'm going to use an example to help you with this one. Let's say your father is just really irritable, angry, manipulative. He's been in trouble with the law a variety of times. He has a long track record. And every time he gets arrested, he seems humble, right? He follows orders. He does what he needs to do. He really seems like he's learned his lesson. But as soon as he gets out of jail, right, or somebody bails him out or he posts bond, whatever, he gets out and he does the same irresponsible thing that got him in jail the first time. And that can happen in a relational sense, right? The family member that you are trying to communicate with, or the family member who doesn't have boundaries that are healthy and respectful of your boundaries, they may bypass your boundaries all the time. You may correct them and it seems like they're learning from their mistakes, but then they do it again, right? And they do it again and again. So recidivism. There's also what psychology calls hunting strategies. When it comes to human predators, they often have hunting strategies. How am I going to get what I want from that family member over there? How am I going to manipulate this dynamic? How am I going to pit this person in the family against this person? Well, I've got to premeditate, right? I've got to think that through. And then I have to try to predict what the response and the outcome is going to be. And then I make my move. So they have hunting strategies. They are also disconnected and emotionally detached. They're disrespectful, immature, right? Emotionally detached. You have a parent who's like this. This can truly lead you down a road of anxiety and depression because you don't have the space to think, to process, to be you, to understand your life, to understand your purpose in life. You don't have any room to do that. Why? Because there's an enmeshed kind of a dynamic within the family where you don't have that boundary, you don't have that privacy, and you don't have that free will to set a boundary because somehow in some way you're going to be disregarded or harmed or hurt, right? And so they tend to be these kind of dynamics within the family. They tend to encourage a disconnected, emotionally immature, and did I say disrespected or disconnected? A kind of a dynamic. It's very unhealthy. I often see this in the office a lot of times, where I have a family member who is the identified patient, right? So the identified patient is the child, but I also see mom, I also see dad, I also see older sibling, right? And I also see the favoritism of the younger sibling, all impacting my client, And so there's often no shame, no guilt, no embarrassment, emotionally disconnected and disrespectful dynamics within that family dynamic. Fantasy prone personality. We talked about that yesterday. That can also be a part of these individuals, I want things to go my way and my way only because I have this fantasized view of how things should go, right? Bypassing your boundaries, not hearing you, not giving you the time of day to explain yourself, to set a healthy boundary for your own psychological and emotional health. All of that can be the result of fantasy prone personality. This person, this family member has this way that they see things and they are not going to change. They're not going to shift. You're just going to have to get used to the way they see life, Research in psychology also says that these individuals have little to no empathy. They tend to operate on cognitive empathy the most. So they take their ability to cognitively understand your feelings and they run all over you and manipulate you and victimize you. Why? Because they know what you're likely feeling. Let's say you go to Uncle BB over there who doesn't have emotional or affective empathy, but he can certainly cognitively process what you are looking for. Are you looking for a hug? Are you looking for, a kiss on the cheek? Are you looking for me to loan you money? Are you looking for me to ask you, is everything okay? Uncle BB, because he's a predator in the family, he kind of preys on people. He disregards their boundaries. He doesn't seem to respect them, right? Uncle BB knows cognitively, this is what you need from me. You need a hug, you need a loan, and you need to feel heard. Boom, cognitive empathy. So then he goes over to you, asks you how much money you need, hugs you, and tells you to call him anytime you need him. Boom. But he's still a manipulator. He still has a predator mindset. How? Because he's premeditated everything he's going to do to get into your good graces so he can then victimize you. It's very interesting how these kind of characters behave in society and how they behave in our family as well. There's no specific title for them. I'm categorizing their behavior in a way that kind of highlights who they are. But we absolutely have no name for this. We could sweep this under the title and definition of psychopath, right? We could also sweep all of these behaviors under the title of sociopath, antisocial personality, borderline personality, and we can also sweep it under the carpet of antisocial personality and see it that way. But we have absolutely no label for these characteristics. And I feel like we should, these kind of individuals, they exploit, they victimize, they manipulate, they triangulate, right? They have a tendency to intimidate and bully because that's how they get on top of you, right? You're here, they're here. They also bypass obvious boundaries. Have you ever had an experience with a family member? They know they shouldn't just show up to your house unexpected at a late time of night, but they do it anyway because they were just in the neighborhood, or they do it anyway because they're upset or they want something, right? So they bypass what is clearly a boundary. That's something that I think most humans kind of do, right? We kind of test the waters to see how far we can get away with something. But a predator or a family member who is disregarding of you, they don't care that they've bypassed your boundaries. They don't care that they've overstepped. It's kind of like when we know that the speed limit on the highway is 70, right? But we're going to take it up to 75. We're going to take it up to 80, then 85, and see how far along on the highway we can get at a higher speed rate, or a miles per hour, whatever you call it. Right. And so we're kind of testing the waters to see how we can kind of get away with it, how far we can go. Well, predators and family members who disregard your space and your needs and your wants, they are the same way. They constantly test the waters with you to see exactly how far they can go. Now, in terms of family rejection, you want to see it this way, that there's a family member or a series of family members. That's the first layer in your family in this dynamic. That's the first layer, that you have family members who are controlling and dominating and disrespectful and disregarding of your boundary. Okay. The second layer of that would be the predator, who is the manipulator, the one who ostracizes, the one who rejects, your needs and your wants, rejects your requests, disregards your boundaries, minimizes your needs, right? So that's the second layer, which are family members who are just completely disregarding. Then you may find that there's parental rejection, where there's no love, there's no warmth, there's no care, concern, there's no empathy. You're just kind of in this world, floating around, trying to figure out where you belong, all on your own. There's emotional absence as well with these kind of family members, these rejecting family members. There's withdrawal, there's abandonment, right? Abandonment could be, I put you into the adoption system, or I put you into foster care because I can't raise you anymore. I didn't want to be bothered with you, or I'm going to abandon you by not responding to your text messages, not responding to your phone calls, not responding to your social media posts. I have completely far removed myself from any kind of a blood tie with you. We're no longer family members. So family rejection can be parental, it could be sibling, it could be abandonment, right? It could be withdrawal, it could be emotional absence, that my body is here, but I am absent on the inside. I am not available to you on the inside, but I am here in terms of frame. My face and everything is here. You see that I'm me, but I'm not going to be emotionally and psychologically available to you. Invalidation and minimization is also a part of the family ostracism. They're going to invalidate your thoughts, feelings, and justify not justify, excuse me, your behaviors, right? So they're going to place the blame. When something happens, you're going to be the one who triggered everything. You're going to be the problem. They're going to invalidate your thoughts, feelings, right? And then minimize what has happened to you, or minimize what happened in a particular situation. Polarization is a part of this, right? Polarization, I'm only seeing this side of the puzzle. I don't care about what's going on over there. It's black or white. It's gray, doesn't exist. Gray doesn't exist, but it's black or white. There's no in between. You know, I'm going to pay attention to my family on this side, forget you. So there's often polarization. There's taking sides and playing favorites in this family dynamic as well. Yeah, this is rough for a lot of people, because sometimes they stand back. Anytime I talk about this kind of dynamic within a family, I see people either slump down in their seats like, oh, that's my family, you know, or I could see them taking a couple steps back, if you will, emotionally and psychologically. And it looks like they are digesting a dynamic that they have experienced for a very long time. It's a tiring dynamic, right, guys? Because here you are trying to have a relationship with your family, or trying to have a relationship that is healthy, and you're being ran over, you're being invalidated, you're being minimized. There's no respect for your thoughts, feelings, right? How you choose to behave. You are kind of, in a sense, axed without really being axed. You're being asked to just shut up, put up, and go along. That's really what it all boils down to. Shut up, don't say anything, okay? And just go along with what's happening. Don't have an opinion, don't have an emotion. Just be quiet and go along, you know? And that's sad. For the sake of time, guys, I'm going to give you the impact on you, and then we'll go back to the chat box. Okay, guys, so that we can get in some of this detailed information, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. So what's the impact? Well, you know, I have clients who, some who have been ostracized by society. They've also been ostracized by their families. And there they are, standing in the middle, trying to figure out how to escape what feels like a complete trap or burden, right? Because when people run over you, when they disregard your space, when they manipulate you, when they premeditate their moves that they are going to engage in to cause you to believe in them, to have trust in them, right? All of those are dark and evil things. I'm getting you to trust me. I'm getting you to care for me. I'm getting you to believe that I'm not going to hurt you. All of those dark, evil maneuvers, right? That family members and other people can do to us in our lives, it can be devastating. So the number one thing that can happen to you is that you kind of get pushed out of the group syndrome, if you will. The group think, we can also use that term. The group dynamic, we can also use that term. You get pushed out a little at a time, you know. You don't have the same ways that you think, you and your family, or you and the other individual that you're connected to. You don't think alike. You don't like their behaviors. They spread rumors and they gossip. They're cold and they're callous. They're disregarding, right? Everything that sets you guys apart in the end results in ostracizing, or the process of, I was going to say ostracization, but that is not a term. Somebody tell me if that's a term. If it's not a term, I'm going to make it a term. Okay. Somebody tell me if ostracization is a term. I feel like it is. But then at the same time, I'm like, Tamara, you know good and well, that's not a word, but we're going to make it a word. They go through this process of let's push this family member out of the group, right? Because they're over there somewhere. We don't agree. I don't respect them. I don't like their boundaries, and we don't click. So go over there somewhere. So you really do get ousted in a sense by your family. And research suggests that this is the result of them family members having little to no empathy, right? There's no family boundaries. There's no emotional boundaries. Emotional boundaries says, here's my emotional limit. I need time alone. I need this day off. I need to go recharge my batteries, right? But a family dynamic that doesn't respect emotional boundaries, they're not going to respect you as an individual. So what happens? You get tossed to the side. So now you are out of the group, and you are no longer a part of the group. You may also have to frequently set limits now that you're an adult, right? You may have to frequently practice and set limits, because it's really hard to maintain healthy relationships when your family dynamic, the number one most important relationship in a person's life, right, is the family and is the parent-child relationship, because they're the closest. They were there from day one. So if that is tampered with, that family dynamic, and it's unhealthy, you may find that it's really hard for you to set limits within your own relationships, and that's the sad part. You may also find yourself feeling shame for setting boundaries. In a sense, this is also people pleasing, but the impact of being in a family like this, in a dynamic like this, could possibly make you feel depressed, overwhelmed, like you're not being a likable person, like it's your fault, like you're to blame for setting a simple physical or psychological and emotional boundary. And that's also a sad reality, that this dynamic has been so messed up and so skewed and so disregarding of myself as a person, my own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors as a person. This dynamic has been so warped, if you will, that I now feel guilt for setting the boundary. And I often feel like you're not going to take me seriously when I set that boundary either. That's another dynamic here. You may also find yourself struggling with a lack of boundaries. You're afraid to put up boundaries, right? Because why would you put up boundaries when boundaries have always been an issue for you? And there's always been a lack of boundaries within the family dynamic. So you may struggle with setting them in everyday relationships or setting them within your family in and of itself. Poor relationship boundaries is something psychology suggests happens when you are in a situation with a person who ostracizes you. There is no self-control. They don't learn from the damage that they have caused you. There's no empathy and there's no responsibility. Research suggests that in that dynamic, over time, your boundaries become less firm. So you develop what we call porous boundaries, where the boundaries are just kind of up and down in your life like a roller coaster, right? And so that can contribute to you developing very poor relationship boundaries, and it can follow you for a very long time. You may have challenges with self-discovery. How are you supposed to go within and engage in introspection and be self-reflective when you have always had to guard yourself or defend yourself from the enemy or the predator or that family member that doesn't get you, right? So self-discovery is really difficult. You may have trouble defining and redefining relationships in your life. Research in psychology does back this up, that once you've developed and you've grown in a family over time that disregards your space, your mind, your free will to have thoughts and emotions that are different from theirs, research suggests that it is very hard to redefine, and rebuild your ability to function in a healthy way in relationships. So it can take quite some time to get back up on your feet to a certain extent. You may also suffer with disorganized, I was going to say distorted, but I'll say disorganized thought patterns. Your thoughts are kind of scattered and all over the place. If you have ADHD or somebody who had ADD, it can be really difficult, right? Kind of keeping your mind on this one road. But it can also be that way for somebody who has experienced trauma. It can also be that way with somebody who is really having a hard time in their family dynamic. So you may find your thoughts are very disorganized. You're over here thinking about work, and then next second you're thinking about that, right? And sometimes your thoughts may be so skewed, it's hard for you to tell what is fiction and what is reality. Or it can be really hard for you to tease apart what you should and should not be worrying about. So it gets kind of complicated over time, the more your thoughts become disorganized in your world. And you may also have trouble with mindfulness. Who can sit and process the current moment? What's happening? What sounds you're hearing? What are you feeling? Who can go within when they don't feel that their thoughts, feelings, or behaviors have ever been validated, have ever been cared for, right? It's really hard to do that. These individuals, guys, we can call them narcissists. Narcissists do not have inhibitory control. They can't pump the brakes. They have an inability to kind of process that this is not right at this time. They don't have the ability to override or suppress their impulses and their behavioral responses to things. So these we can say a label to all of these characteristics we just talked about. Could be narcissism, could be antisocial personality, could be a psychopath, right? Or it could be a very controlling, dominating family member. Maybe the nice, cute little granny that lives down the street that you think is innocent, you know? It's really complicated, right, guys? Next week, I think you're going to be in for a treat as well, because I'm going to bring up a brand new angle that focuses on new terms, new research, and just some areas that we haven't touched on yet. All right, guys. So I'm going to go ahead to the chat box. I'm going to take a sip of water, and then we can go ahead and wrap up. Okay. YHWH sent me, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. YHWH says, first, ostracized is control by isolation to induce weakness. Yes, yes, it is. Thank you for saying that. Control by isolation to induce weakness. Think about the family member who is staring at you at a Christmas party, won't come over to say hello to you, won't wave at you, won't give you a friendly smile. They just stand there and stare at you, right? And then they come over and they talk to some other family member that they are close to. And what does that do? That kind of says, you're out of the conversation, go over there somewhere, because I'm going to stand here and talk to Uncle Bo, right? So you're very, very right about that. Ostracism, used to control by isolation to induce weakness. Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. Shannon G. Style, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Shannon says, but I totally understand what you're saying in here about the actual narcissist. Yes. Did I skip over you? Yes. Shannon G. Style says, what about the mom who's not a narcissist, actually kind and loving, but has a narcissistic husband and can't deal with the truth and what's real when talking to you? Yeah, absolutely. That's just as significant. You might want to see my live chat from yesterday. We talked about those kind of individuals for sure. Okay, let me keep moving here. GB Joe says, no touch or compassion. My mom simply was clear about it's her world and you're in the way. Absolutely. Absolutely. What do you think of parents who say, oh, I don't like hugging you? I had a mother years ago, somewhere around 2017, 2018. And I was just coming into working more with families, you know, and family dynamics. And I remember our mom, her little girl was the sweetest thing. She was so cute and innocent. But I remember her mom saying to her while sitting on a couch, I may have shared this story in the past, but she's sitting on a couch and she looks at her daughter, and her daughter's talking to me. Daughter's about 10, maybe 11, 12, somewhere around in there. And mom sitting right next to her daughter. So her daughter's on her right. She crosses her right leg over her left leg. Okay. She sits over this way and her daughter's over here. And her daughter started crying. She's trying to explain, excuse me, a family dynamic that's hurtful. And she can't believe it's happening in her family. And mom stayed unbothered, untouched, you know, crossed her leg away from the child, turned her body kind of away from the child, removed herself from the space, you know. Looking at how space is held in a therapy session can talk, and I'll put it this way, can speak volumes to the dynamic. And so daughter's here crying her eyes out. And I just wanted to get up and hug her. But I don't want to disregard mom, who's supposed to be taking that role. But Juby Joe, having a mother like that, a father like that, who makes it known you're there and I'm here, it's a very depressing dynamic, right? Because it says, I mean more than you. I mean more than you. And that's a depressing reality. Napalm 1334, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. Napalm 1334 says, that's what my mom did to my bro and I, always trying to play us against each other. I got older and established boundaries. Sadly, he stays enmeshed. Well, I agree. And I'm sorry he's kind of stuck in that. It is not easy when the parent is the aggressor, when the parent is the unstable one, when the parent is the, the family member who has caused so much damage, right? That they can't see the damage. It's really hard for a sibling to say, you know what, I'm going to agree with you and go this way. They will typically stay attached to that parent, right? Yeah. It's a little bit of a depressing dynamic. Shannon G. Style, says they don't learn from what damage was caused to you into them. Yes, I get that. They would rather co-sign on the story, okay, and get what they can get away with. Yeah. What they can that way, or get what they can that way. Yeah, I understand. I'm sorry. I read that botchy. Yes, I agree with that. I hear what you're saying. Bossy Truthy 15 says, my mother, when she started crying, I know something is wrong. That's when she started to change, because narcissists. Okay, am I reading this wrong too? My mother, when she started crying, I know something is wrong. That's when she started to change, became narcissist. Because of my father and narcissist sisters. That's an interesting dynamic. I'm not sure if we could look at it that way, but we might be able to. I mean, what was mom's risk factors? Risk factors are things that make us more vulnerable in life and vulnerable to developing disorders or conditions, right? So, was she betrayed? Was she always arrogant? What were those risk factors, And, if you have some time to go back over and, look at those risk factors, it could be drugs and alcohol. It could be being hurt all the time. Could have been childhood trauma. Could have been when she lost her job. Could have been the divorce. All of those things are risk factors, and they contribute to a shift in behavior over time. Okay, let me keep moving, guys. I'm wearing down here. I'm feeling a little tired. Danny G, hello and welcome. Good to see you, and welcome to tonight's live chat. Danny G says, like the video, y'all. This woman helps me stay sane, and I know she does the same for others. Thank you so much for that. That's so sweet, and so glad. That's awesome. So glad to hear that. Okay, let's keep moving. Miss Janine. Hello, Miss Janine. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Miss Janine says, my parents never hugged. I always hugged them and still hug mom and sister, friends, etc. to this day. I'm empathic. They're cold. Set boundaries emotionally. I agree. Yeah. I'm a touchy-feely kind of a person too, and especially with kiddos who initiate wanting to hug me. I had a little sweet little baby come in on, what day was that? Thursday night. And I totally love her and her sister. And at the end of the sessions, I'll say, good night, guys. Have a wonderful night. See you next week. And the little one just, prances her way over to me, or bounces or jumps or runs, or, she always has a different response every session. And I just enjoy her little hugs, and I feel like she does with me, and it sets her almost like on this happy road, and she's like happy and, ready to go home with her dad and her mom, but I think when you have somebody who says, don't touch me, I've had that said to some of my clients in sessions, and this would be a parent to a child, don't touch me. I had a mom one time look at her daughter who was crying and said, wipe your tears, because crying is a weakness. And I had to really, really talk to mom after that session and let her know, you're teaching all the wrong things. It's not a weakness. But You have those people who just, they don't have the right theory when it comes to being emotional, when it comes to being emotionally supportive, right? Or respectful of your thoughts and feelings, Yeah. Sometimes a person who is very opposed to physical touch or affection, that means something. It could mean maybe they're on the autism spectrum. It could mean maybe they're traumatized, but it could also mean that they're dark and evil. It could also mean that they're narcissistic and self-centered. And hugging you means they have to extend themselves, and they don't want to do that. Okay, let's keep moving, guys, so we can wrap up. What was it? Me, axe to edge? Are you talking about when I said ostracization? if that's what you're talking about, I don't think it's a word. I don't think it's a word. No, somebody correct me if that's not a word. Inakukla? I feel like I messed that up, but hello and welcome to the channel, and good to see you. So glad that you are starting therapy. If you can find that really knowledgeable, compassionate, and caring therapist, I think therapist is a really healthy thing. If you can find what it is that you need. AMB says, this is what it is like in my husband's family, and they think I am weird because I instituted boundaries. My husband even expressed anger because I refused to take emotional hits or to allow our son. You finished that, AMB? I don't see where you finished it. Okay, I'll just end it on because I refuse to take emotional hits or to allow our son. I gotcha. There's a period there. Okay, yeah, that's another really unstable dynamic, right? That because you've married into a family, now you have to what? Let your walls down? No, thank you. Don't come to my house at 2 a.m. in the morning or 7 or even 8 a.m. because I'm not ready to talk to you. Don't text me all times of the night, okay? No, you can't borrow all of my clothes. Nope, can't borrow my vehicle because I don't know how you drive and I don't need any tickets or issues with my insurance. Like, setting boundaries is okay, right? And even the boundary of, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to spend this holiday with my other family, but I will see you next holiday, right? Whatever the boundaries are, they have to be set, right? And unfortunately, family has to maneuver around that. Napalm1334, thank you so much for that. Says, you've been making amazing content lately. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. And then you also say, wonderful stream as usual, Tam. Thank you so much for that. And so glad we're going to keep it going. Right, guys? We gotta keep this thing going, For those of you who really feel like these are awesome topics, you're going to want to come back next week. Oh man, you changed your screen name on me. I don't know how do you even pronounce that? Ghost Smoke? I think I got it. That's shocking. Ghost Smoke, hello and welcome. Glad you could catch another live with us. He says, hey, glad I could catch another live. This is more of a family to me, a safe space. That is so really wonderful to hear, and really humbling, I think, just for the community. So glad you feel that way. Yep. So glad you feel that way. Excuse me. Elizabeth Wildley. I'm trying to say too much at the same time. Hello and welcome. Good to see you back tonight. Elizabeth Wildley says, hi all. Do these boundaryless people behave this way when incarcerated? Yes, they do. Yes. If they don't have relationship boundaries, that's for all relationships, right? And of course, being incarcerated doesn't really change anything. You have those predators who really do have a high rate of recidivism, where they get in trouble, they are jailed or imprisoned, and then they get out, and guess what? They do the same stuff all over again. Why? Because they never changed, they never grew, they're stuck in a mindset. This is just who they are. And I hate to say this, but some people really do come into this world to live a life of crime, darkness, evil, and the list goes on, because that's all they are here to do, and or that's all that they've ever known. It's a very sad dynamic. But the short answer to that, Elizabeth, is yes. Imani Still, I love it here. You've created a beautiful space. Thank you so much for that. That's beautiful. And welcome to the channel. I'm glad to see you. Good to have you as well. That's awesome. All right, guys. Sorry, not sorry. Hello and welcome. Good to see you back. Manny Still says they're strategic. Excuse me. They're very strategic. Dominating too. Patrick Black 1. Good to see you. Welcome. We're going to sign off here in just a minute. Actually, Jovial, I love that I've seen this in the chat box when I've gone over to rewatch the videos. You literally pull out something I've said and highlight it. And you find the humor in it. You do. And I love you for that. Actually, Jovial, I'm just going to put your quote of what I said up here. And when you do kind of pause and think about it, it is kind of funny, right? It is. It really is. Because we don't wake up thinking we're going to run into a sociopath or a psychopath. No. Axe to edge. That's cute. I like that too. Did you just say calm, collected, and coordinated? Oh my God. Okay. I am calm. I am cool and collected, if I can humbly say so. But coordinated, no. Coordinated when I dance, yes. As a youth. But coordinated, sometimes I'm not coordinated. Sometimes I'm not. No. We have so much pressure on our plate as therapists, you know? So I don't think too many of us are coordinated. For those who are, give me a secret because I don't know how to get there. Patrick Black 1 says, do psychopaths reach out for help? No. The only time they're going to reach out for help, Patrick Black 1, is one, if they're going to be fired from a high-powered position that they want, right? If they're going to lose their marriage, right? They don't want to be divorced because that means something's wrong with them, something failed, something, you know, so they don't want to get a divorce. So they sometimes go to therapy to try to save the marriage, or they are court ordered to seek treatment. Those are the only 3 conditions under which a psychopath, a narcissist, and even someone with antisocial personality disorder would go to therapy. Therapy is a self-discovery will, you know, and it's like every session is a new play, you know, and it's a new spin. Like on Wheel of Fortune, it's a new spin. Every session is a new spin. You don't know if you're going to be talking about losses. You don't know if you might be talking about trauma that session. And it really requires you to have this mindfulness. And psychopaths do not have that. Yes. All right, guys. I think I got to most of you. Sorry, not sorry says, getting free from a psychopath is the best thing we can all do for ourselves. Took me years to get the strength to do what I am capable and want to. I just made firefighter. You can do it too. That's amazing. Oh man, if I weren't a therapist, that would be my road, I think. You know, yesterday I said interior design and architect. That would be my road too. So if there's a such thing as coming back reincarnated, sorry, not sorry, I want to be you, because that is such a powerful position, right? It's traumatic, but you get to be there in the midst of people who need you, and you can just freely give to them, right? I think that's a wonderful place to be. Guys, I can talk to you all night. We're going to have to wrap up here. Maria Tana, I forgot how I said it yesterday. Hello and welcome. Good to see you. Let's pause here, guys. Next week, I will see you. Thank you so much for being with me this weekend. I hope you had a wonderful and safe 4th of July and that these live chats were helpful. I'm going to come back next week and maybe with a video as well on some other cool topics. So stay tuned. Okay, guys. Have a wonderful Saturday night and Sunday. I'll see you soon. Good night, guys.